Hi. Try to sneak up
Just
on you.
killing a little time
Okay.
while I wait for us to. Are we in motion now?
Yes, we are in motion now.
Everything is going on.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do this evening, first I need to introduce myself to those who may not know my name. My name is Odie Hawkins. I'm the author of these books and a number of others. And I was recently informed by several people, including my dearly beloved wife, Zola Salena-Hawkins, that what I should do is justify my appearance here. So I took that into consideration and I agreed with it. So here I am, offering a justification for giving little talks about each one of these books that I've written. Altogether, I think the number is 32. Sometimes I get it wrong, sometimes 30. But 32 published books. And one of the reasons why I was asked to give a justification for the books has to do with the fact that I've been writing in a number of genres. And as we know, most writers get into a one genre groove, either because the publisher asks for them to do that, or they just fall into that, you know, Western romance or Gothic mysteries or whatever it is. I didn't fall into that groove. I fell into a number of other grooves. I should add, one of the other reasons why I'm interested in giving this little talk is because I've been the writing instructor, writing workshop leader for about something like the last 40 years since I was in the Watts Writers Workshop, which is another whole story altogether. During the course of that time, I've tried to promote what you might call a free writing agenda for the people who are in the workshop. The guy who comes in and says, maybe I should just simply write about Africa. So, you know, if that's your choice. But I would suggest that you write about other continents too. You know, let's take it everywhere. So what I'm going to do right here and now, it's not going to take very long because I know we're all busy trying to catch up with what's happening in the news and keep track of the tweets and do all the other things.
As one
I
of
have
your,
a question from the balcony.
Yes.
Yes, a question from the balcony.
As one of the students in your writing workshop,
That's right.
you say to write about what you know, and if you want a subject, then you should study and research it, and then know it. Just like, you know, you should read more than things that you are familiar with. Read something out of the box. Read something other than Baldwin or Richard Wright or Melville or, you know.
That is in support of my premise totally.
Yes.
Strangely enough, a lot of us, I should say many of us, know a lot about many different things. If you choose to write about the things you know about, you might be amazed to discover what it is you know a lot about. I had a student a few years ago who was very fond of dogs and knew a lot about dogs. I mean, different breeds. I mean, he could see a dog walking down the street with his owner and tell you what kind of mix it was. Oh, that's the Siberian Husky Chihuahua. You know, that's a Pomeranian, what do you call it? Pomeranian Dachshund, you know, and so forth and so on. So he was encouraged. I encouraged him to write about dogs, and he did. He also wrote about something having to do with science. I can't remember what it was. Several other people were interested in esoteric arts, sumo wrestling, bullfighting. I've had an interest in that myself. So, having said all of that, let me...
And wasn't there, was it a Korean or an Asian writer who wrote about life in the South, and he had never lived there?
I think it was a Chinese man from Brooklyn.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of his name now, but they had a long column about him in the New York Times. I remember him well. Okay, if you remember, some years back, there was sort of like a big brouhaha about William Styron writing about Nate Turner in the first person. That becomes kind of a ticklish thing, because if you want to write about a person or personality, you're not from that particular racial group, we're still at that point now where we can't just simply say, I know something about your experience because I know you. I've met you. Your family is a friend of my family's. Well, in some cases that might be a catalyst for writing about somebody's family, but if you were an Anglo-European family, European-American family, I don't know how you would be able to justify writing about an African-American family, because the backgrounds, the history, the mores, the culture is so different. I know a lot of white people think that black people are just dark white people, darker white people, but that's not the case. We brought a lot over here other than, hair that wasn't straight. So, let me take you through the genres that I've been guilty of or innocent of writing about, and I'll give a little explanation of what each one is about, so that when you go to Barnes and Nobles or to Amazon.com, you'll be able to understand, or you'll be able to know something about what it is these books are connected to. The first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The first 11 books that I'm going to mention and to give a brief description about come from what I call the urban landscape. The urban landscape is really code for black, African American, but in most bookstore catalogs, they will say urban when they mean, especially if they're talking about the ghettos in Chicago or the ghetto in Ketchikan, Alaska, wherever it is that there are a large number of African Americans who are poor, underprivileged, and having a hard time. They call it urban. In this particular genre called the urban landscape, I have Amazing Grace, which is a collection of short stories. Black Chicago, sitting right here in front of you. Black Chicago is a book that I was encouraged to write about by a former school teacher, the lady who actually put the writing bug in my head, Dr. Margaret Burroughs. She says, you should write something about Black Chicago. And what she meant was, write something about the first non-indigenous settler to Chicago, who was a man named Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable. A lot of people know that, a lot of people don't know it. She was, for most of her life, a proponent of the idea of renaming Chicago DuSable City. Incidentally, she happened to be the founder of the DuSable Museum of African American History, the first one established in the United States. Chicago Hustle. Chicago Hustle is what could be best described as a street book that deals with a guy named Elijah who hustles. He's a small timer who does various scams and invents various games. As they used to say in the block that I grew up on, he's a man who lives by his wits. So, then we have Los Angeles. I came to Los Angeles in 1966, right after the Watts Rebellion, which a lot of mainstream media would like to call the Watts Riot. It was not a riot, it was a rebellion against police oppression and negative life circumstances.
That was well documented a few years ago at Cal State University at Vegas Hills, where you spoke about that.
Is that right?
Yeah, the Watts Rebellion.
I remember, I was there. I
Yes.
was one of the panelists to
Yes.
talk about it.
Yes.
It was put into place by Professor Vivian Price about
Exactly.
and they did. They labeled it rebellion.
It was a grand event.
That's Los Angeles. I'm making a bit of a pun on the subject by calling it the Los Angeles, the Los Angeles. Midnight is the story of a couple of gangbangers from Detroit who get enough money to do something with, and they decide for some reason to take a trip to Ghana.
Midnight.
They really are not quite sure where Ghana is, but they wind up there.
Okay.
And they bring all of the attitudes and mores of street people from Detroit to Accra, Ghana, and wind up having an interesting time.
About what year was that? That was way before the year of the return, so...
Oh, yes, quite.
That was in the 1980s?
1965.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry, 1985. What am I talking about? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Scars and Memories. Scars and Memories is an attempt by yours truly to write his autobiography. I was a little too young to do it then. I wrote it when I was in my 40s. Now I'm in my late 80s. I'll be 89 6 years from today.
There you go.
So if I keep on moving, I'll be old enough again to write the real story of my life, which is what an autobiography is. Secret Music is a book of short stories that I think makes an effort to capitalize on all of those little weird circumstances that happen that make for the secret music most of us hear in our heads from time to time. The little secret music that says, go do that, go do that. And you should listen to all of this music because it can lead you astray. It'll have you jumping around to the wrong rhythms. That's enough I have to say about that. The Busting Out of an Ordinary Man. The real title is supposed to be Ghetto Sketches 2. But at the time I wrote this novel, like 1974, I had an earlier novel published by Holloway House. The book that was published first in 1972 was called Ghetto Sketches. I followed that with a sequel called Ghetto Sketches 2. The publisher, who thought he knew more about the ghetto that I grew up in than I did, decided to rename the title, or to retitle the book, The Busting Out of an Ordinary Man. Actually, I found out from one of the editors that he didn't deliberately rename the book. They just had an extra cover that was called The Busting Out of an Ordinary Man, and they decided to plaster that cover on the book that I had titled Ghetto Sketches 2. Beware, beware, beware. The great Lord Buddha is a kind of a they call him picaresque. this is a journey made by a rascal. As you know, for those Spanish speakers, a picaro is a rascal.
Oh,
So we get the word picaresque.
okay.
And this is a character who goes around and about, doing various negative things, not too negative, not a criminal, but he's always getting himself into some kind of little problem. At one point, he winds up becoming a first-class waiter in an Italian restaurant, and he winds up becoming the chef and valet and all-around man of the moment.
Many talents.
For a black opera singer named Ife Ibun, which means God's gift.
Oh,
Ife Ibun is kind of a combination of Leontine Price and a couple of the marvelous divas who have diva-esque qualities.
oh.
And Chester L. Simmons is the great Lord Buddha in this. Then we get to Sweet Peter Dieter, also known as Mr. Sweets. Sweet Peter Dieter is a character that is not very well known these days because his species, luckily, his species are beginning to disappear. I don't hesitate to say that I'm glad to see that that's happening because he was a pimp. And we don't really have a tremendous need for low-class human beings who capitalize on other human beings in our social order, I should say, in our society. Of course, we do have pimps in high offices. I think some people could say that the present-day chief executive of the nation is a pimp of one sort or another. But I'll leave that up to the politicians to determine after they vote. Okay, now we come to Southern Exposure. Southern Exposure is a nostalgic sort of piece about a love story between a young soldier and an older woman. He's 24, she's 44, and of course it doesn't quite work out. But the story details their relationship with each other. Kind of whimsical, kind of romantic, kind of crazy in a way.
Okay.
Finally, now we get to what I'm calling global intrigue. Matter of fact, the book is right here.
Oh, Brazilian Nights.
Global Intrigue. I happen to have it right in front of me. I didn't notice it. Brazilian Nights. People are always focusing on Brazilian Carnival. You know, the black people coming down out of the favelas, dancing, you know, the way they did in Black Orpheus and so forth and so on. I started thinking, maybe it's because of my long involvement with Capoeira Angola, Capoeira Regional. I'm in my 40th some year now. I don't do a lot of that. I can do the ginga, I can sing a song, I can play the birimbau, I can do the pandeiro, I can do the go-go, but au, melo de French, melo de compass, I don't know. I'll leave that up to the younger capoeiristas. But Brazilian Nights takes in a lot of that. Conspiracy, these are labeled under the title Global Intrigue. Conspiracy is my theory that during the heyday of the apartheid regime in South Africa, my theory is that some South African Boers some scientists who were trying to damage the African American population so that they would not be able to support the freedom fight in South Africa under Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and the rest of those people who gave up so much. These Boers, these South African scientists, came up with something that they call ghetto blaster. Ghetto blaster was a cocaine-like drug, not crack, but a cocaine-like drug that was totally addictive. One hit and you were hooked. And they made an effort to try to distribute that in all of the rebellious ghettos in America, on the south side and the west side and the north side, where I came from, in Chicago, Buttermilk Bottom in St. Louis, Gwinnett Street in Georgia, wherever there's a ghetto in the United States. They wanted to distribute ghetto blaster. Shackles Across Time. Sorry. I missed The Life and Times of Chester L. Simmons. Chester L. Simmons is my alter ego. I've tried to use this man to write about things that I've experienced only a little bit of, but had more of an imagination about. For example, being in jail for long periods of time. As claustrophobic as I am, I'm certain I would have killed myself the first minute I was put behind bars. But I'm just saying that because I haven't had that experience, and I have no intention of having that experience. If anybody hears that I've been arrested, you know that I've been framed.
But you taught in the school. You taught in the prison.
Well, that wasn't under claustrophobic conditions. We usually were in a room. You're right. I taught at Chino Prison, minimum security, and also up north at San Quentin, and in a juvenile prison a few miles down the road called Duell Vocational Rehabilitation something. Nobody was being rehabilitated, and neither one of the prisons. They were just simply being imprisoned. Okay. A little bit like being enslaved. Shackles Across Time is the story of a family who was cursed because one of the members of their family, these are Africans, one of the members of their family is responsible for having some other members of his village taken away into chattel slavery in North America. The curse goes through 3-4 generations of people before a resolution is made. I don't want to describe what happened, but the curse was lifted. Let's say that. What I was interested in, and it was one of the reasons why I went to Ghana in 1992, was to actually do a little research on the African involvement, the West African, specifically the West African involvement in the North American and South American and Caribbean slave in enslavement. I'd like to make that point because I hear people saying things like, we are the descendants of slaves. No, we are not. We are the descendants of people who were enslaved. There's a big, huge difference psychologically and philosophically. People who were enslaved had that happen, and they were taken away from their homes and so forth and so on. They were not naturally slaves when they got on the boat. In addition to that, even though some of these people had experienced slavery in their homeland, Africa, they were never burdened by chattel slavery, which meant that you were going to be enslaved for the rest of your entire life, and on and on and on and on. Something like the Indian caste system. You know, if your grandfather worked in the sewer if your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather worked in the sewer, that's where you were going to work. So we are the descendants of enslaved people, not slaves. And that's what Shackles of Time is about. Now, I get to the last two. And these are space stories.
Social science fiction.
Out of science fiction. I was looking for the word. I couldn't.
Yeah, social science fiction.
Social science fiction. The first one is called Lady Bliss. And the story is, in brief, is of 7 astronauts who are going on a long duration space mission. And of course, the thing that they discover they feel that they're going to miss most is female companionship. They've made a deliberate effort to exclude gay men, so all these guys are straight. They find themselves in need of, female companionship. So a mad scientist comes up with the idea of creating a female composite surrogate, I guess you would call it, who is not a comfort woman. She's not having sexual relations with each one of the 7 astronauts, but she is giving them an opportunity to have female companionship. In several cases, it does wind up becoming a little bit more physical than just having conversation when they go to the place where Lady Bliss is waiting to serve tea or to talk or to just simply do what women do. That's so magical and incredible. The second thing was suggested by none other than Zola Salena-Hawkins, who said, with no malice or forethought, hey, look, Jack. Oh no, I think it was Pal. Hey, look, Pal. You got 7 men up there on a long duration mission who have female companionship. What's going to happen when they start sending females up? Like, how about 7 females who have a male companion? The challenge was irresistible. So, of course, I got busy and created a creature that I called Mr. Barnable Bliss. As you all are aware, the Barnable monkey, some people say bonobo or bonobo, are some of the few primates who make love face to face. And they do make love. It's not simply mating. And there's sort of a little in-joke about the name. But he manages to go into space with these ladies, these astronauts, they call themselves. And he has such a successful venture with them that several of them come back to Earth with post-traumatic romantic stress disorders because they will never be the same again. So, there it is.
But before you go, you have a new book out.
Yes.
What category would it fit in?
The book is called, I can't remember what the name is now.
Urban Nomads
It's
and Other Stories.
Urban Nomads.
And Other Stories.
How could I forget the latest book?
Right, okay.
Urban Nomads deals with the problems and fables and foibles of homeless people who are not demonized or criticized or put in an unfavorable light because they are homeless.
Is that social
I
category?
call it social.
Oh, okay. And I don't think you mentioned ancestral meridians.
Ancestral meridians, I'm calling it acupunctural literature.
Okay.
Acupuncture, because it's about the effects that acupuncture can have on you, and only by acupuncture. I think you may have another thing happening if you have cupping done, or if you have some other form of homeopathic medicine performed.
I think, yeah, rather if it's in the sociology type atmosphere.
Well, call it the sociological needle if you want to.
Okay. And
I'm just kidding.
the Matadors.
Matador 1 and Matador 2 deals with what happens when an African American from Chicago, Illinois, decides to become a matador as a long-standing ole,
Okay.
as a long-standing fan, not a dyed-in-the-wool aficionado, but as a fan, because I don't want to say that I have to sit here and defend bullfighting. I couldn't. I fully support and agree with the people who say it is animal torture, but at the same time, it is part of at least one culture, the Spanish culture, that feels that it is as much a part of the culture as anything else. As a matter of fact, I think it has to do with the fact that there's so much money involved, bull ranchers and bullfighters, so there's a multi-million-dollar business, something like football in this country.
Thank you.
That may be
yes,
that may be controversial, but everybody knows we could probably get the same kind of thrills and effects out of having computer
generated
virtual reality happen to supply you with the head knocking you think you want to see concerning teams going at bullfighting. We don't want to get into boxing because that really
okay.
really
and
does
the
it.
last one I'd like to mention, even though you don't really consider it part of the thing because you wrote it as fun, is the cookbook.
The cookbook.
And it does have some recipes in it, but I think you wrote it more as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think it just simply supports the notion that we have, and I'm pulling you from behind the camera to support this, the feeling we have that eating should be as much fun as it should be nutritious.
Amen.
Delicious, nutritious, healthy.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's like making love. The people who want to be solemn and withdrawn and anxious and going through all the anxiety and fearsome and all that. My father was a great champion of funny love making.
Huh.
He used to talk to me about that. He says, what is it about these people that want to make love making so serious? It could be as much, it certainly isn't stand-up comedy.
Okay.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Certainly it isn't stand-up comedy.
Okay.
But because it's done in another kind of way, let's say in a supine position, horizontal condition, and it doesn't have to be completely horizontal. I mean, I'm sitting in a chair. One could do various things sitting in a chair, which might make it sit up making love, right?
Back to the book.
So it seems that you've got me off on a little rant. Look, I gotta go, but I wanted to take a moment or two to explain what it is that a would-be writer should be concerned about, and that is writing as well as you can about that which you know best, or if you don't know what best, find out.
There you go. Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkins. I appreciate that. And, I think it's, your work has a lot of places that it goes in all of your books.
I like that. I like that.
Okay.
Is it your turn now?
No, it just goes here, there, and everywhere. But I especially like the romantic scenes.
Yeah.
Because they're really nice.
It's going to be fun. I have not gotten through all the books, and in the succeeding days, I'm going to lay them out.
It's on.
I said it'll be for the rest of the month, and it will be.
This week. Okay, so until next time.
Until next time, peace and happiness.
Peace and happiness.
Bright moments.
Bright moments.